Today we're going to look at inverse functions. Now, an inverse function is like a function that reverses the effect of another function. So if you have a function that takes the input x and it gives you y, then the inverse of that function, which we write f to the minus 1, will take that y and give you back an x. Another way of writing this would be to say, if you take the inverse of the function, then that's x. Now, that turns out to be equivalent because any function's inverse is the original function. We can also write that as f of inverse f also equals x. Now, we can see here that if we've got a function that is not one-to-one, so it's one-to-many, for instance, say x squared, then if I'm taking, having multiple different x's going to my y, then if I'm trying to reverse this, then I don't know which x to go back to. So there is no inverse unless it's one-to-one. Now, we can redefine our domain to make most functions one-to-one. And if we're looking on our calculator, we've got a couple of inverse functions built in, which this has happened to. So your square root x button is the inverse of squaring, but because negative numbers and positive numbers both square to be positive, it only looks at the domain 0 to infinity. So it ignores all the negative. And similarly, all your inverse sine, cos, and tan buttons, they've also, because sine, remember, is a wave, there are lots and lots of different x's that will give you the same y. So the function on the calculator will cut it off to give a single section where it's one-to-one. And that's why when we do sine to the minus 1, we always get an answer back that's between negative 180 degrees and positive 100. Sorry, that should be negative 90 degrees and positive 90 degrees. And cos is between 0 and 180. Now, how do we calculate the inverse of a function? We've got two methods. So let's say we find inverse of f of x equals 3x plus 5. Okay, so the first way we can do it is along this line here. What we do is we just swap our y and x. So I'm going to write this as y equals, and just to make it easier for the writing. And then I'm going to swap them. So my inverse, I'm going to swap these around. So I end up with x equals 3y plus 5. And then I'm just going to rearrange that to make y the subject. So minusing 5 off both sides, I get x plus 5 equals 3y. Dividing by 3, you get y equals x plus 5 over 3. I'll have a look at the second method in this next video.